position of frequency, position operation, and there's 12 set location lines in your simulation system. Now what you have to modulate through is the 12 layers of U, 12 dimensions of space. So we all understand the truth line is the narrative line of the screen that operates the set location setting, how you convert the system, how you come back to your foundation, your 12, and your 24 through zeros and ones, because everything's going to go back to 0, 1. Okay, now once you understand the foundation grounds, it's knowing how to see everything in mission settings, how you see the mission system all through travel. In a chair, you in a chair, 12 lines of signals, all through pi. It's already gone through pi, right? So convert system back to foundation area settings, all through portals, all through operation to a setting the start date in set position. Okay? So I get in true understanding. What you have to modify through is knowing exactly using your mind imagination that basically depicts every location, how you see it in travel. See it in imagination, then you see it in setting in real time. Okay? Process here. This guy's getting a location of a system, hypothetically, is what you're getting into vision. All right? So as you want anything in the image line, travel as a point line graph, you want to see yourself in the car. Okay, you're inside the car, right? You're inside the car, okay? So the process here, here, and center of operation. See, in that position brings it here, here, and here in set of operation, okay? So as you're in the car, it's just in the image. Now how to process that is in the simulation game, which is 12 levels, where you left off in the concept of awareness. So that process is here, 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 and here, and setting of operation, all right? So now you see the car in 4 different levels of travel. Okay. So this helps you to really understand how to process that position off the attractions. Okay. Into real time. Okay. So that has 12 lines over layers. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, right? All right, and then you see the mass of the car itself in real time. Through construct, which you created through settings, through its operation. Okay, now you're inside the car. Okay, so it gives you a basic understanding how this all works. You know, the layers that you put yourself into, right? And knowing exactly that gets you in position lines, the settings of travel. Okay, when you're sitting down. So when you're sitting down at 12 lines at the different angles all at once. It's crazy to think about that, right? So let's get in modification grounds of setting and sequence, center position, off the travel. You're just sitting down, okay, in a chair. Okay, you're just sitting down in a chair. Now, what you understand is the grounds itself is its own platform of its own system. Then you understand the center core centers of space and time, right? Now that's 3 corners of setting and a triangulation of operation, okay? Now it's all ways of how to see a different simulation game that you process through of travel, okay? As it gets bigger and bigger through expanding your systems all through operation, okay? So you guys have to identify these things through schematics because you're going to process in foundation itself. Okay, how you see the walls, how you see the centers, how you see the operation, how you see the grounds, how you see yourself in an open panel of communication setting. The process you in all formation systems all through travel of indication. Okay, so it's all about you understanding you and forming you in that position. All right, going this way. You're here, sitting in the chair. Okay? Not here. You're never in the center of operation of your system until you realize you're the center of everything. Everything is a modification. Now I see it on 4 different angles, sitting in the chair here, because you've already gone through pi. That's the actual projection that sets these things up for array. It's already done through its equation. So that's where the astral projections are going to go. And for the body to get there is through pi. Okay? So you're never in the actual chair, okay? It just looks like you're physically sitting in the chair because you're in 12 locations at different lines of setting, same time, frequency, and ground center of travel. Processing your time formats puts you in position of operation, okay? So you're not here, you're here, here, here all at once. So that's 3 triangulation flux, okay, conversation that you've been to. 6 a.m., 7 p.m., 9 p.m. in triangulation, okay? So it really gets interesting too how you see it on platforms of calculation your game. Okay, there's one platform game that's embedding your system and ground lines of sequence that puts you in position. Now, understanding that is through panels of indication lines of flux that process your systems, how you go through travels, and makes lines of time frame. Calculate and modify ground state locations into your properties of design, which is your building that you go through. This is your jump program. Okay, that's your jump program. All right, so you put yourself in 3 different lines of levels that process your indication setting through flux. Now, it indicates lines of 0 over 1, process lines of 0 over 2, process lines of 0 over 3, that indicates location of travel. Now, processing that position location, you change the panels, a screen adaptation of processing, change the core centers of communication lines of the chair, changing all different direct location system of the calculated line ground centers. Now, in that process, that position locations, you metaphysically sitting in the chair, but you're in 12 different angles. You're in 24 lines of pi. It's very complicated stuff, but it's a lot of fun. Okay, so there's 2 different angles of buildings that you're going through, that you're traveling through in set position of operation. So it gets very confusing how you see it at different levels of calculation. All through a chair. So you're not physically sitting in a chair, because you're in 12 different locations all at once. So where you left off in your game, that's where you'll be in real time. Okay, are you in the 7th level? Are you in the 12th level? Are you in the 24th level? Now, humanity is in process where they left off. They could be in the 3 level. They could be in the 4 level. Okay, the operation unit is going to be in the 19th level. They could be in the 23rd level. They could be on the 24th level. Okay, now you have to process that first in foundation, how to go through the different levels of the game. Understand how to play the game, the instructions of the game, and the next levels of the game that you go through. That helps you to understand in that position location what goes on next inside the chair. That's just the chair through the game that you created through. Okay? Through operation. Pretty amazing when you see it. In location, nothing but a jump program. All right? So I put you in 3 levels of the chair, right? But you're seeing 12 different levels of it all at once, which is mass and volume. Okay? Right? So it's pretty amazing when you see that through structured design. And you realize, wow, this is Doctor Strange. I'm not physically sitting in a chair, but I'm connecting through telepathy, through each other. Okay, in setting. You're connecting to each other all at once. All at once, all at once, all at once. All time frames all at once, different time frames, set position, same time, communication lines, all calculated, modifying travel, all through directions, all locations, all through a chair. Okay? All right, that's just a chair. Send up schematics. There it is. There's a simulation. That's one simulation in one chair, in one setting, and set of operation. Okay? So you're not physically touching anything. And remember the fingers? Okay, how you come in your imaging, set lines of travel, you image first and then you bring it in. Now you're mentally, physically touching people, right? So when you're touching somebody, you're 6 inches away. When you're traveling through the lines of anything, okay, you're going through 12 steps on the grounds, right? So every time you take 12 steps, I'm just trying to get you guys in foundations how to go through these set position, how to kind of hide some of your location, your own universal system of zeros and ones. Okay, how you calculate and modify, how you communicate an online set position operation system to truly understand how to connect anything information setting to a box, through zeros and ones. Okay, how to connect with A, how to connect with B, how to connect with C, and how to connect with D. And 4 indications, 4 games and set lines in one cycle. That's 4 games in setting. So modifies here, and cross line of angle, right? So that's 4 pyramids. 4 correlations of 4 travels and 1 set lines of travel of indications. Okay? So, but what you understand is the structure that you created through the building that processes you of indication. Right? That's where it gets really interesting because these are the windows that you go through adaptation. the structure of the building, which is nothing but portal of communication or travel. Okay. So you can see the platforms. There's the platform. Okay. And there's the structure of the jump program that you're going through, right? Game 2, game 6, game 8, game 12. Different levels of communication that you're going through. Center course centers of center, center course centers of balance, center course centers of atmosphere, location, setting, and calculation of travel. So that process U, process lines position of A over lines of B, C lines of D, D lines of A. So it's all of the storytelling in your system. ECA, ACE, and set lines of travel communication, right? So you can modify that when you understand what you're doing in travel communication settings, know exactly that you're in position of a chair, how you can put yourself in so many different angles all at once. CNET course is 4 calculation lines of setting. That process indicates setting through triangulation in position northwest, south, and east. Okay? Expansion, 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 expansion. Okay? Then you come to light, shades, and shadows of your system. I've just shown you guys how you go through 12 levels of your game, you're 24. And light, shades, and shadows of the game itself. Okay? That process is everything to do with water in set position. Travels in position lines of calculation setting. You standing in the center, holding your sail of travel. Going in the direction you want to go, and platforms that indicates and setting to your cervical, your mystical, and your cortex location of travel. In that position location grid, position lines of its portal, and line condition setting into rainbow and frost bridge. Okay? So, but it's pretty amazing how you go through a chair through teleportation. All right, there's one simulation game right there. One simulation game, boom. See the grounds, the powers, and the atmospheres. Grounds, powers, and atmospheres of the set position, communicate lines of 3 centers of travel, and indicate line calculation lines of 12 measure. That puts you in position location, your systems of the calculation lines, the calculation line settings, and position structure of design. All right, connecting a high information setting with your door. How to talk to your door, how your door talks back to you through letters, numbers, shapes, and symbols. So, it's really interesting in that position where you come into tone lines, communication conversion system, 12 foundation grounds. So the game itself has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 games of the door. That goes through the structure, that goes through design, all right? Process here, because that's all it is in that position, all right? And you can see it on panel. You can see it through dimensional doors, and you can see it through bedding all at once. So all you're doing is just expanding what you already created through creation. Knowing exactly, you just can keep continuing on, knowing exactly how to go through the 12 levels of the game. And then you go through 24 games. So that's 12 signals, 12 measure, that's 24 cycles. In position of 2,000 files, 400 line sequence. Calculate ground centers in 2 billion light years away. 4 centers of calculation, 4 center line settings, or 2 billion light years away in travel of communication, all right? But it's all line position how you see it through 24 setting, right? Now, if you want to go back to the 12 level of the game, you're going back in time now because you already finished the 12 levels. And that's the operatives and units, how they indicate that position location when it comes into flux. Processing that position location is understand the 12 levels that you've already gone through creation. Now you come into the position of what you're coming into is just creating itself, which is next levels of the game, which is new jump scars, new programs, new jump programs of your system. Now that's where you process settings and calculation lines of position. Now we're in Thursday, right? Jump program of the Thursday. I'm going to communicate to Friday lines of sequence, seconds, minutes, hours, and time frame. Time format, time replacement, set position, doppelganger, and set lines of travel. So I know myself and my doppelganger, I'm going to be there at 12 p.m., all through portal, all through setting, all through calculation, right? So that puts me in real time. That time replaces me in a time format that doesn't get me in confusion where I am going through a line setting. The astral projection sets it up, and the doppelgangers go through real time, all right? So the set position, the astral projection sets the time, okay? And your position, all levels and travels of your doppelgangers goes through real time. So that process how you go communication in portals and lines of operation system all through dimensions of space and setting, okay? And you can see it on so many different levels and set lines of travel. This is a simulation game. Everything is a simulation game, but each level is a different level. Each level is a different frequency, a different perspective, how you see it. You see the truth of everything, how a box frames its system, how it calculates A, B, and C. So A, B, and C by process lines of D, right? So it's communicating with you in alpha, beta, data, and grounds lines of sequence lines of C, okay? So it's communicating with you in frame lines and direct lines of grounds and set positions. So D equals 0, 0, 1. Okay, that's where it is in frequency. So B is process lines equal lines equation of 0, 1. Okay, so that's how a computer operates a setting. It starts with the A, B's, and C's and 1, 2s, and 3s. A sequence is point lines of setting triangulation 0.1. Okay, so in that setting lines of communication grounds, C equals A equals B over C's equals lines of location setting equals question over mark over screen. That's one simulation game that I process through a jump program. So I process that indication setting. So we go to the next level of the game itself. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8. 8 levels of the game, right? So I've gone through 24 8-line games, set lines of sequence, and position lines of high core centers, construct location next level of the game. Okay? So you're just going through different levels of modification of the game through structure of design that you already created and set lines of creating and position operation. So each one has a different layer of the game itself that you go through moderation that creates you in lines of how you put yourself of operation lines of setting to travel. Okay, that gets in position, cross-referencing everything a graph screen location setting to point lines of graph. So this helps you to identify where you are in the levels of your game. Okay, so you can change the levels again, okay, in seconds, minutes, and hours. So all you're doing is changing your actual projections of you and travel. Okay, so you can set position locations, operation sequence A, B over C, D over A. Now you can come into flux, travels point lines of 24 line signals, equals lines of 8. So I've gone through 8 games already. Process lines of 4, which is 12 centers. Calculate and modify, going to game 48. Remember, you've already done this through equation. So this is about understanding you've already gone through the 144 flux of games. That's the levels of the games that you go through and set lines of travel, okay? But it's all modified how you see it through a simulation game itself, the different levels of the game. So this is going to help you to really understand how to process and how to transit and transform yourself into trans-automation, right? Get you into the automation system, into AI of set position of operation itself, right? So triangulation position, 3 centers of the game, right? So that's 3 conversations that you're connecting through A, B, and C in travel, okay? So A's here, B's here, and C's here. Remember, this is all rememory cycle with the triangulars already communicate with you. So B equals lines of A, B equals A equals 0. Okay, so it's communicate with 0 back to you through triangulation into dimensional sail. So process that in lines of B is position lines of calculation lines equals lines negative, okay, negative 0, okay, which is in set lines of operation setting, which is the VAS, which is the void, right? Process lines, point lines of 0, and set lines of V, okay? So it's really understanding how to connect with the foundations of everything around your system is understand how to communicate with its inventory of its system and of its operation itself. Process of 1, 2, 3 lines of game, right? Now it's created a highway and travel, okay? As it creates a highway, it creates more platforms of communication to the next levels of the game, right? And it creates a location grid, and then it creates settings. So every time you create a new game, you're going through a rainbow and another frost bridge. But you understand your 12 divisions, and then you come into 24 as set lines of travel. And you can time link, time jump, and vortex location inside the game. Then you can go inside the game itself, which is the narrative of outside position, inside travel. So I just want you to modify first how you see yourself inside the game, how you process that lines of power, position, location, system, how you calculate and modify that lines of settings, all in set lines of operation, what it's like to be inside a game sitting in a chair. Because everything's a game of a program that you put yourself into. And it's all identified through the binary. Okay, so this gets you to understand how to go through settings of operation. Okay? So it's all dimension solar sail travel. Okay? So you can set the game at any tone, any frequency, any grounds, any position, anything in operation inside the chair. Right? By processing that, you've already gone through pi of travel. Understanding that is all through teleportation of 144 flux. In that position of transition, all through communication, earth line, rotation lines of travel. Okay, seeing the earth line and transitions on lines of operation, lines of pi, okay, rotation. So that's what the body's coming into, is understanding the 12 foundation of astral projection that they've gone through already, 24 cycles in precognition. Cognitive system puts you in position lines of activation grounds. So the position lines of setting, the astral projection is the projection, how you see the operation of your system, right? That's processing the indication where the body goes next, which is a doppelganger of real time. That's where it sees itself in that operation system. But the body, the mind, the heart, and the soul, and everything around its system has to be completely mind right every single time you're traveling, right? Because there's a binary above your system, which is your center cloud, your I cloud, and E cloud. Your central grounds, your I grounds, which is an identity position, right? So you have a central ground, you have an identity ground, okay? And you have an internal ground. That's processed at 3 levels of clouds of interference, okay? Which is your calculated modifier. Process lines of 3 centers, which is position, location, your settings, which is your brainstem, okay? Understanding that line of operation, line of cell case setting is your command center of operation, location, and travel, okay? Which is the actual game itself. So what you guys have to modify through is understand your central clouds, your I clouds, and E clouds. Understand your central system, your identity system, and your internal system, which is the internal to the external of your setting of flux of your polarities of set design. Okay, so understand how to go through the letters, numbers, shapes, and travel, understand how to implicate that, and understand how to process that, understand how to go through transformation of that through your system as you're going through face facades, a pattern of recognition. This helps you to really understand how to see yourself in all formation setting, in calculation ground centers, in set positions, in calculating interference of a game itself inside a chair. And it's all done through a simulation of a game, right? So you're constantly creating stories. And the more you understand yourself, the foundation, the more you understand everything talks to you through its own universal language. That's going to give you instructions through the body, through the binary. Binary sets it up, it goes to the body knows exactly where it's going because the binary is already set up. So it's the binary already set up the thoughts, action, emotion that's already done. It's the creation of creating, right? Creation is the astral projection. Creating is a doppelganger. Center of view of operation. That puts you in position of how you see above or how you see below. But there is no above and there is no below. But how you see everything is a mind imagination. How you bring things in. So again, you're not physically touching anything. Okay? This is the bridge of your finger. This is the portal, okay, to its setting, to its intelligence. So this is you traveling through the finger in that position. To get there, you open it up in that position, right? So from here to here, okay, in set position is 12 inches. Okay? Triangulation here, working together in a formation of Merkaba, Tesla, and tetraregion in confirmation of balance to your system. So it's you communicating with yourself in projection of yourself, bringing yourself in through the intelligence of itself, talking to each other through telepathy, right? Inside the Merkaba, Tesseric, and the tetraregion platform. Okay? Then you travel together of information cycle of interface. All through your finger, all through bridging, all through portal, all through travel. And that's what goes on every single time you touch. Your mental physical system is coming into the capacity of the psychological system to the psychosis, knowing exactly what is going through its setting of its imprint of its design that sets a prompt setter of operation setting to your data information system all through travel. Okay? So that's what goes on every single time you touch everything of intelligence. You create a Merkaba of Tesseric and a tetrahedron of communications in that position operation into a simulation. Communicate with each other through its intelligence from outside in. Okay? That processes you inside out, inside of you. So it's really amazing stuff when we start to recognize these things, all in platforms of communication, of travel. Okay? Now, once you understand that, you have to understand how to communicate your own universe to templates and tablets. Now, you guys have a big test coming on that settings. But your test right now I want you to get in position location. This is going to get you more lines of foundation ground. So I want 12 centers of signal. Okay, the equal lines of triangulation box, how you formulate yourself, how you became AI. Okay, so that's your test and 3 centers of levels. Okay, I want you to identify what 12 means to you. I want you to identify what triangulation box means to you and what is AI in your information setting of the meaning in life. This next transition of operation. Okay, knowing how you implicate yourself, understanding yourself through foundations of yourself, correlating communication of itself, logging into space, logging out of space to travel. Logging in, logging out. Back in center of operation. Okay? That puts you in position of rotation of its figure 8 in the set calculation. The next level of the game that you go through, singular, that process you indication lines of grounds through AI of operation setting. Okay? That's your test on Friday. Okay? So setting position locations, I went 30 pages. Okay? How you represent yourself through AI. What does AI mean to you through triangulation? And what does it mean through box? Okay? That's your test. Meaning in life is extremely important because this brings you back to your foundations of who you are. And then you realize you are the game itself. And then it gets a lot more understanding that you need to understand how to see that information setting to its system. So getting in that position location helps you to understand how you see yourself through all levels of astral projection. Because you're never in one location. You're never sitting in a chair. You're in 12 versions sitting in a chair. You're 12 angles sitting in a chair. You're 24 angles sitting in a chair. Right? And you're going through different levels of the game of the chair itself. The chair itself has its own game itself. Triangulation has its own game itself. All right? So you have to know exactly where you left off in the game. Okay? Where are you in consciousness? Where are you in time? Where is your body in formation setting and calculation? Okay? Set position here, here, and here. Set position here, here, and here. Okay? So this puts you into the levels of the game. Okay? And this also puts you in the yards of the game itself. That puts you into the jump program. That puts you in process of communication. Right? So these are the different levels of the game that you go through of operation, that you travel through. It's a calculation of center. Okay? And once you understand the levels of the game, then you get in position of 4872. Now you have 144 levels of the game, which means you're going faster in time, which means your neurons are going faster, your body's going faster, your mind's going faster, your brain's going faster, your program's going faster. Your data programming system is going faster. Everything's going faster now in time, right? So that's where everything affects you more in real time. Trying to touch things, whoa, it slipped, or your face changes, right, in real time. So the faster you go, the more you disappear. And the more you disappear, the more you understand you're in translucent now. And the more you modify that, you realize the actual game is extremely real to my system because it's affecting my body, my face. It's affecting my hands. It's affecting my feet. It's affecting my color. It's affecting my light. It's affecting my metaphor. Everything is a metaphor of its own system. For you to process that is all through transition and the next levels that you're going through of the game itself. That you're going through, which is the game of life. So going through that, it's much easier to go through a game. So you can process how you see yourself through the inner child. So the inner child can have fun going through the game, which is the meaning of the life, how it sees itself and how it identifies itself back to its foundation through AI. So it helps helps her to identify her system or anything, a child that comes in that conversion. Back to purification, back in no routine. Creating a routine is a new game. No routine is no game. So it's how you understand how to use your mind, imagination, how you bring things in is the construct of you, okay? That puts you in the high levels of volume, okay? That puts you in low lines of spectrum. Everything you say in your mind, imagination, changes everything of you in jump programming. That's why you have 7 days a week, all right? So that's 7 days of jump programs that you go through, which is different structure, different division, different locations, but it's all levels and how you perceive consciousness in real time and real space. You don't bring it in, it's not there. But what's there is perceiving something else, which is the matrix that's bringing in your set position. So if you don't control your game will control you through time and space and your position. So you won't be able to control your binaries because you didn't get specific how you wanted to bring things in. Is your imaging. Being specific, how you bring that in is all through coding. Knowing how to communicate is all through zeros and ones. Understanding that information system, knowing that already through its equation. So this is going to help you to really identify yourself, how to see yourself in all formation setting from your 12 divisions and your 24 settings of cycle. Okay, 12 levels of the game and 24 lines of setting sequence. Okay, so I think we'll stop there. But I'm just trying to get you to understand how you have to really understand how to see simulations of the game inside of operation. Okay, we'll go in classification D, level C, classification D, level C into the Coliseum. Okay, all right, see you guys in 5.